Hi, this is Gary Mitchell, and this is Gary on manufacturing. In this case, Gary on the convergence of IT and OT. And once again, as always, this podcast is brought to you by Ignition from Inductive Automation. Really appreciate those people out in California who support my website and my podcasts, and and thanks a lot to them. I'm catching up on podcasts based on a bunch of trips that I made over the spring, and I'm recording this at 1st of June. And one reason is one of my vices is soccer, and I'm a soccer referee and a referee assigner. And this past weekend was a nice sized tournament up at Ohio Northern University, Ada, Ohio. And we had 85 teams, which means somewhere in the vicinity of 1,700 young people out there playing soccer and hopefully learning some skills and learning how to compete and getting some life skills along with some fun in the sun. Only a couple of coaches had to be asked to go to the parking lot, and in the whole tournament, one player was also asked to go to the parking lot. But so all in all, competitive, but a good time, and always appreciate contributing back to whatever I can do to help develop young people, and especially like my young referees that learn life skills like showing up on time. Oops, one of them didn't, but that's another issue. Dressing properly. Acting professional, making decisions, sticking up for their decisions in the face of adults yelling at them, and so on. And so that's my vice, but it's worthwhile. But it sure took up a couple of weeks of my time as I was recruiting and assigning referees. So hopefully you all have something, especially in the spring and the summer, that you do that help pass on some kind of values to the younger generation. This podcast, I'm catching up on what I did at Hannover Messe with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HPE. Now, I've known about Hewlett Packard for a long time. Back in the 80s, they actually made PCs, and I was authorized to sell those things. Although, to be honest, I probably sold more IBM than I did Compaq or HP at the time, but that was a long time ago. That was like 30 years, and a lot of things have changed since then. HP split in two, and this is the enterprise part, and about almost a year ago now, I was approached by some people who knew me, and HPE was developing an Internet of Things practice, if you will. And it started, my first interaction with HPE was a device they call Edgeline. It's an edge computing device. Given the power of a lot of the computing, or what they call compute in that business, that HPE has, the edge device could be, in the variety of things, a very powerful computing device with a lot of storage. And once again, we're talking about the edge. So especially in manufacturing, we could be channeling an awful lot of data over a network, and it could clog any kind of network, pardon me, going to the cloud. So edge devices become very interesting. We channel to a more local device, let it do all kinds of storage and processing and so on, so that things like maybe HMIs or analytics can be done close to the source, where oftentimes you need that more instant feedback of an analytic to a mobile device that tells an operator or a maintenance person or somebody, an engineer, what the status of what's going on with the particular machine or process. So anyway, that was my first brush with them, and then I went to Discover Madrid. And Discover is the name of their user conference, if you will. And I went to Discover Madrid in last November, and learned an awful lot more, interviewed a bunch of people, and saw how Internet of Things had now blossomed from a department making an edge device, which is powerful and cool and all that. That's all good. But the who reports to whom got moved up the channel quite a ways, and now, just like its competitor, Internet of Things has high visibility with a high-ranking executive in charge of it. So on that side of the Internet of Things side, it was very interesting. And the other thing is Hewlett Packard Enterprise (HPE) has a real burgeoning manufacturing practice within its group, and that's very interesting. When I went to Hannover Messe, which is a manufacturing industrial type of show, the stand that HPE had was purely suited for the environment, and so there were little kiosks all around with manufacturing type applications. And let me check my notes really quickly here. I was impressed with all that. The fact that manufacturing, that they put thought into, who the people were coming through and everything. The stand was often very busy. Hanover, like a lot of shows, opens on Monday, and Monday is a so-so day. A lot of people, but not tons. Tuesday, everything is swamped. Wednesday is pretty good. By Thursday, it's tapering off. It's just like every show I've ever been to. But at any rate, plenty of traffic came through the HPE booth, and it was in with other digital manufacturing, digital transformation types of companies. So it was very interesting. Some of the things in the stand, I interviewed a person on blockchain, and there's a lot of talk about blockchain and how that's going to be used in manufacturing. I think it probably has supply chain application, probably track and trace like pharma kinds of things, but we may find more. Now, I've talked to some people who kind of like are cool on the idea of blockchain. When I talked to the HPE expert Christian Reichenbach, he was using examples from a variety of sources, and he's fairly bullish that there are good applications for blockchain. HPE is poised with the technology and the support to be able to use blockchain as the customers begin to request it, as the apps are developed. Remote visual guidance. Boy, that sounds high-flowing. So there's a picture of me on my blog post from Hanover and HPE wearing a hard hat and goggles. And this is an AR, augmented reality device. They bring in from someone else the AR goggles. And it's pretty typical with what I've seen developing over the years, and I think it's getting to a point where for us in manufacturing and industrial environments, there's a lot of use cases for, say, operators or maintenance people to put these on to be able to see a picture of the way the machine should be, and then we can look and see the way it is and make things right. Or maybe we can call up some information so that we don't have to look down at a book and then back up, but we can see maybe the schematic, or we could see a snippet of code, or we could see the step-by-step workflow of how to fix, troubleshoot and repair this particular equipment, whatever it might be, or maybe we just get instant feedback on the status of a pump or a fan or a motor of some kind, or whatever it might be. So anyway, they're demonstrating that and feeding back through their compute devices and so on. They have a starter kit to help users connect devices to the cloud using the HPE Edgeline softing OPC UA starter kit to help you write OPC UA to fit into all this thing. And the cloud they're using is Microsoft Azure. Microsoft, by the way, had a stand, as did a lot of other people in this whole area. Matter of fact, that whole cloud thing was interesting. There was Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft always has a big stand at Hanover the last few years. But Amazon Web Services was also there, which is kind of interesting. And there was some competition for cloud during Hanover. They had a vision system. I used to be a vision integrator a long, long time ago, and it's pretty cool. And I'm still thrilled by vision, but the pricing has gotten low. The computing power has gotten so high that it lost maybe even some interest to me a little bit, I don't know. But they had a vision system reading a 2D barcode, retrieving the correct bill of materials from a device under construction. And then it expects, this is a circuit board, and it expects for the components on the circuit board that it's A, the proper component, B, placed properly and seated properly, and all that sort of thing. A really good working demo of integrating vision through HPE computing. And then we talked about partnerships, and they had a lot of partnerships. And one of the HPE executives I interviewed while I was there talked about partnering is the DNA of the company. They do a lot of that. The partners that I talked to or saw included ABB, GE Digital, OSIsoft, PTC, which would be like the Kepware OPC stuff, for example, or ThingWorks was a big partner. Rittal makes enclosures, and there was an enclosure with part of the demo as they built up a whole demo panel. And Schneider Electric is another partner. So, quick recap. So just to summarize, this was my HPE experience at Hannover in April of 2018. It's very interesting. Obviously, HPE has many people devoted to manufacturing at a decently high executive level, making some sales. They offer more than just an edge device. They offer compute power and partnerships and connectivity and a lot of interesting things. And so this is just, if you read between the lines of everything I've said so far, it's an IT-OT convergence that we used to hear about all the time from one way or the other. HPE approaching things from the IT side and bringing IT technology, that's a redundancy, into the mix, but partnering with people like ABB, GE, Schneider, PTC to bring OT into the mix also, and getting a joining. And maybe we'll never be able to get the two departments physically working that closely together. They have each has their own objective, but that's okay. But we're getting closer to bringing all this technology together, and it's being driven by the need for data. Everywhere I turn, management, so the people who actually buy all this stuff, not the CIO or the manufacturing manager, but the operations managers charged with profit and loss, anywhere from a plant manager to division executives or so on. They need data to make better decisions, to enhance profitability, and that's what they're looking for, and that's what's being provided by all of this. This is Gary speaking on technology related to manufacturing and industrial production. And once again, this podcast is brought to you by Ignition from the folks at Inductive Automation. Thank you, and thanks for listening. Please subscribe and pass along this podcast to other people who might be interested. Thanks, and have a good day.